Let's get right into this one. We have Chagano, Junior dos Santos taking on Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and this is going to be an excellent striking bout at heavyweight. I am really excited for this one. This is going to be an awesome fight. So let's look at how these two guys match up here. We have former champ JDS, 6'4", former pro kickboxer Rozenstruik, same height, similar reach. I think we got the 1-inch advantage here for Rozenstruik. Might not be noticeable in there at their size. And both guys do weigh in at about 240, so they're that medium-sized heavyweight. They don't cut down to 265 like somebody at Derek Lewis's size, for example. But let's look at their finish rates here. We got a 90% KO rate for Rozenstruik, who has, I believe, 11 pro MMA fights, and a few of those are in the UFC. And we have JDS with a 71% KO rate. Former champion, he's been fighting some of the highest level guys for years. He's been in the UFC since, I believe, 2008. So tons of experience there, especially at the highest level. And I would say, for a long time, one of the best strikers in the heavyweight division in the UFC. And these guys are both some of the best, I would say. They're both top 10 fighters. I think we have the number 5 and 6 guy competing here, but definitely going to be an excellent striking bout. So we have some decisions here for JDS. He does have 5-round fights in there as well, so the average fight time can get inflated with that. I know Rozenstruik has a 5-round fight. He finished Alistair Overeem in the 5th round. Looks like Rozenstruik lands more knockdowns, but these stats are based on all of their UFC fights, and JDS has more fights, so it's not painting the exact picture we need. But we can see that JDS might land more significant strikes per minute. However, I don't think we're going to see a judge's scorecard on this one, so I don't think it's going to matter who lands more, but we'll see. You never know. And as far as the grappling goes, Rozenstruik, pro kickboxer, probably never going to shoot a takedown in the rest of his UFC career. I don't know. If he shoots a takedown, I'll be really surprised. And for JDS, he has a third of a takedown every 15 minutes, which means 1 takedown every 45 minutes in the cage. So not a huge takedown artist there. He's not really going to bring the fight to the mat unless he gets a knockdown. And same for Rozenstruik here. And they both have some pretty good takedown defense. So unless they're fighting savage wrestlers, they're not going to be the guys that are going to take each other down here. Let's look at JDS's record. I mean, he's been in the UFC for a long time, trains at ATT. His recent losses, he has a 2nd-round loss to Curtis Blades here. He has a 1st-round loss to Francis Ngannou, and I believe Rozenstruik is also coming off a loss to Francis. It might have been in the 1st round, but beat Derek Lewis. This was an impressive fight. Derek Lewis is one of the bigger guys at heavyweight, and he's pretty hard to finish, but JDS was able to do it. Tai Tuivasa, it's not as an impressive win, but it's still pretty impressive. I mean, this was a very cool fight if you go back and watch it. I really enjoyed it. Has a decision win over Blagoy Ivanov, who isn't easy to finish. I think he only has 1 loss to submission, and everything else is decisions, basically. JDS has fought Stipe twice. The first fight, I believe, was 3 rounds? No. He beat JDS in a 5-round main event. And, yeah. Okay, that was a 5-rounder. Went to decision, so Stipe wasn't able to finish him in 5 rounds, which is interesting. And on the rematch, it looks like Stipe beat him pretty quick. So, JDS beat Stipe in a 5-round decision in 2014, and then returns in 2017, loses in the 1st round. But you know, Stipe fighting for the title, one of the best heavyweights on the planet. So I'm excited for that. Shit. I'm excited for this fight. Anyway, we have the trilogy with Cain Velasquez. He came in and took Cain's belt, defended against Frank Mir, and then lost it. And then lost again in a rematch with Cain Velasquez. Those were some of the most exciting fights back in the day. When I was getting into UFC, I think I watched the first fight, actually. It was right around the time I was getting into the UFC. I think I saw JDS take the title. It was one of the first fights. I didn't know what I was watching. I wasn't as into it. But it was a while ago. And I'm really glad I'm following along still, because I've seen so many great fights since then. But Rozenstruik has a ton of fights. JDS has a ton of fights at the UFC level, so that's interesting. I would say JDS might have the better boxing, but it's pretty close. It might just be a slight advantage on the hands, but I don't know. That's just what I've seen in the tape. I would say JDS has been in great shape recently. If you look at his Instagram, he is jacked. He's not, I mean, he's taking this serious. He's not going into this whatever. He looks like he's in really good shape. He looks really jacked compared to some of his recent fights that I've seen. I'm excited to see this, so it's going to be interesting. Most of his losses, he has 5 losses by KO on his record. We just looked at a lot of those, but they're all the top level guys. I mean, you know all the names that have finished him except early on in the career. And he's really good. This is going to be a banger. This is going to be a really interesting fight. He might have the grappling advantage here. He's Brazilian, trains at ATT. He might have a grappling advantage here, but we're not going to see any grappling. I don't think it's going to happen at all. There's going to be almost no chance of it, but if we see it, I'll be stoked. It would be really interesting. And let's take a look over here at Rozenstruik. I know JDS has got a lot of UFC fights to look at, pretty extensive career. But the Rozenstruik has less fights in the UFC, but a ton of kickboxing fights. He's a former professional kickboxer. I think he has over 80 professional kickboxing fights with 76 wins, and it's 64 finishes. Yeah, 64 KOs, TKOs in kickboxing. I didn't have a complete record, so I couldn't see everything, but I did see on there he has 2 losses by finishing kickboxing, and then if we look in the UFC, he has that 1 loss to Francis. They both have a loss to Francis in the first round. So, I mean, who doesn't Francis knock out other than Stipe? But let's see here. We've got Alistair Overeem. We got a win over Andrei Arlovski. We got a win over Alan Crowder. And then his UFC debut, he beat Junior Albini, who's not in the UFC, I believe, anymore. But we're not going to see Rozenstruik shoot for a takedown. We're just going to see him go in there. He's got really good, very crisp combinations. He's got some nice high kicks. I know we've seen JDS throw some spin kicks and some nice flashy kicks. I think JDS might have the better kicks, but it's really hard to say. These guys are both going to have a tremendous amount of power in there. I think Rozenstruik might be the harder guy to finish, but it's really hard to say for sure. I'm excited for this fight. I'm leaning on the Rozenstruik to get it done here, but I don't have enough confidence in it to actually place a bet on that. What I do have a bet on, though, is I'm betting that this fight does not go the distance, and I think I got decent odds on that. I took it at minus 285, but it's still right around that minus 300 price, which not everybody loves that price, but I will take that all day on a no decision pick on a fight like this, where you have 2 heavyweights that aren't going to shoot a takedown. They're just going to stand and bang for 15 minutes. If it goes 15 minutes, I don't think it's going 15 minutes. But this is one of my more confident picks as far as a no decision goes, and that's what I'm placing. Anyway, if you want to follow along with my live picks, tune into my Twitch at twitch.tv/Cewpins, and I will have other videos breaking down some other fights on the card.